Technology. It's great until it sucks. And when it sucks, it sucks. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, and aptly named, Differently Wired. Yeah, that's exactly what the technology is aptly termed when it comes to our show. Thanks so much for joining us for the 5th episode of the Differently Wired show, ladies and gentlemen. I am, of course, your friendly neighborhood Simpsons kid, Max Derrat. And joining me, John, thank you so much for your patience. I almost lost it there when we went off there. And yeah, his name is John Tucker. John, what's going on today?
Well, I almost lost it myself, but here we are, found again.
Lost and found. What's the famous song that lost? Now I'm found. I I don't know. Somebody can help me out with that in the chat. I don't I don't have very much patience left. Let's just get on with things. Anyways, for those of you who are joining us for the first time for the Differently Wired channel, you don't know what we're all about. Let me explain it to you. Basically, the whole concept of the show is to give a space for people with mental health and autism related issues to come together and exchange advice, exchange resources. Ideally, we're the ones that provide that to you. Although, when we do the show live, there are tons of people that are joining us in the chat live, and you can talk with them to see what their experiences are like. And also, like, there will be stuff that you can engage, where you can engage with other people outside of the show when we're not live. Speaking of which, let me just detail that before we jump right into the main topic. We have a Facebook page. If you guys want to connect with me or other people that are fans of the show or fans of my content, make sure you go there. If there's a link in the description box below, you can go there right now, even if you're listening live. And also, I know not a lot of people are too big, huge fans of Facebook or Skype. A lot of people, up until about a week ago, have been asking me to make a Discord. Well, guess what? We have a Discord. See it right there on screen right now. If you want to join, we're accepting just a few members at a time over a week. We're trying to give incentive for people to listen to the show and to support us, and we don't want to give out Discord links all the time. But what we're going to do for now is every week when we start a new show, we'll give out an exclusive link that can only be accessed by 5 people. So if you haven't joined our Discord server yet, make sure you look in the description box as well, and you'll find a link there, and click on it quickly because it's only available for 5 people. And if you don't get it this time, don't worry, just tune in next week and there will be a new link. And aside from that, that's pretty much it just for the housekeeping stuff. Let's just get right into the main topic because the technical difficulties kind of had us need to speed things up a little bit. So this was suggested to me by somebody who actually joined the Discord server, asking if I could talk about employment and upward mobility. I think his name is Noided. So Noided, thank you so much for that. Yeah, obviously this is a big issue that centers around pretty much anybody that has mental health or autism related issues. This is something that I dealt with in very vivid and unusual and uncomfortable circumstances, which I'm sure a lot of you have been privy to if you've watched my Truth About Asperger's series, which I'm sure most of you who are watching this have. So, like, I can go into more detail about specific circumstances, but because a lot of you have already heard most of what I have to say, I'm just going to throw this over to John because I know that is sort of his bread and butter, trying to get people that have these issues to open up about them, figure out what occupation suits them best. He's the expert in this. Obviously, that's why I sought him in the first place, and that's why I brought him on to do the show. So, John, your experiences with
Sure.
this.
There are many and various the challenges that people face when they have Asperger's, ADHD, or any sort of neurobiological challenge. The biggest challenge is your sense of self and your sense of self-confidence and the overwhelming stuff that happens to you throughout your whole life leading up to the time where you start figuring out what you want to do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of in-building to do to make you inwardly stronger sometimes, quite often. And I think that's concentrating on what is good and strong and that you enjoy doing and people that are absolutely not toxic for you. So in your general life, you've got to surround yourself with supportive environmental things, period.
Mm-hmm.
Now, facing the world of work, you also have to do something else. not only do you have to find friendly, graceful, gracious environments, you have to go at things that you really like to do and that you're really good at. So my go-to resource for this one is the What Color is Your Parachute book by the late Richard N. Bowles. I've got the 219 edition, which I'm working through with one or two people. But this book actually gets you to dig in and find out what in your personality joins you to the world of work. And it helps you sort out where you're strongest if you don't know that. If you do know that, then it goes on and helps you locate the right kind of process to get work. So, for instance, one example of a rotten way to get a job, it works sometimes, like 2% of the time, is to flick resumes out all over the place. That's Richard says this is about the worst way because there are 5,000 people in competition with you. If there's a spelling mistake on the cover, you get dumped. So the best thing, like the best way to get a job is your mother hires you, your brother hires you, somebody close to you, somebody knows you. And he goes through these processes. If you don't have anyone in a position like that, then you do this, then you do that.
Mm.
So you nip away at the edges of opportunity. So what you're doing is making the world as safe as you can, reasonably challenging, but also not toxic and mostly friendly
Mhm.
in this world of work. So you're doing things that interest you, that you feel good about. So even if those things are not what other people want you to do, they got to be what you want to do.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Like, and especially in my case, I found with all the jobs that I've had, uh, like for the most part, I did a good job at the jobs that I did seek out, but with the exception of the one that I most recently had, I was only able to stay there for 3 or 4 months before I just found it too emotionally overwhelming and I had to leave. Right. But when you're situated in a job where you know, like you can expect everything that's going to happen, you go in, you do your job well, and you get out. That's essentially the job that I'm at right now. And in circumstances like that, that's where people who either have autism, high functioning autism, or mental health issues, that's where they can really shine and show that they're not just their disability, there actually can be something quite extraordinary. And in
Yeah.
respect to that, trying to help people find their ideal job and separate the wheat from the chaff, I suppose, as somebody seeking out work. What do you think, like in your experience, what have you found works best?
In terms of what?
In terms of just trying to make the whole job seeking process uh, not so convoluted and being able to find a job where it caters to your sensory and emotional needs.
Um, Research
Hmm.
in the form of visiting the place, talking to the people. If, for instance, you work in a grocery store, go to the grocery store and try it out and see how it feels. In
Hmm.
other words, you'll learn a lot just by visiting the place. I also noticed that in the chat room, somebody raised a question that we didn't do yet, and that is the gelling with other workers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this was Betamax 80 asked, made that point, a good point. A similar principle is involved. When you find the right kind of job in the right kind of place, you now have to figure out um, who you can rely on to talk with, to give you pointers, to alert you to anything that's, um, how should I say, coming up, or some sort of thing that's a practice. If you have Asperger's, you may not pick up on certain social clues about we all do this at this time and we all get together and do this. Somebody may need to point out that this is a custom or structure of the place. So it's a really good idea in order to gel. Not don't try to gel with everybody at once. You'll become jello. You got to find you got to find a
That's why
person.
you
Or
selected his question, right? It was so you can make that joke.
you know me too well.
I thought, okay, I let's just get one thing straight before we move on. I'm the master of puns, okay?
Sorry,
All right.
creeping up on you.
Continue. Continue. Don't worry. Just don't
Well,
let it happen again.
the essential thing is you have friends there and you have people who are indifferent and you might have people that are nasty.
Mhm.
So target the people who are friendly, warm, welcoming, and they are not the big bosses. It's got to be sort of people in your pool.
Yeah.
Got to
But
be people around you, right?
yeah, and there's always somebody, like, well, at least in my experience, when I've been at these different places, even with the ones that I left pretty early, there's always that one person that's pretty sociable and very friendly. They'll come up to you and start talking to you and be very open. Those are the people that you want on your side. And thankfully, at my most recent job, the guy who hired me, he was absolutely like that. And actually, our working relationship was so good that we're actually we're Facebook friends. Haha. We actually made that jump.
That reminds me of something I should have mentioned, and that is, in order to get along well with others, they want to feel that you're listening to them.
Mhm.
It's kind of tricky, but if somebody does what you say and they come up and talk to you and they act friendly, turn to face them somehow,
Mhm.
turn toward them, listen to what they're saying, encouraging them to continue what they're saying. That draws them in because you're paying attention to them.
Yeah.
That's supportive of whatever they're up to. So in any way that you can encourage your own, number one, listening skills. Number two, appearance of listening skills. That can be a trick.
Yes. Yes.
It can be a trick. But if you can work on the appearance of listening skills, that will get rid of some social barriers.
Yeah, and I know that that sounds easy. It's easier said than done, but there are some things that even people that have Asperger's like me can do, even when you're not the most socially apt. Like for example, I know like a lot of people are, especially whenever I get into a conversation with somebody, I'm always afraid that I might, I don't know, gesture in some way, or I might not smile at the right time, and that might be off-putting to somebody. Uh, in those circumstances, when you're talking to somebody and they might potentially be offended, just try to be on the lookout. And you don't have to do this all the time, like throughout your social relationship with them. Just be on guard for the first time that something like this might happen. And if they get potentially put off by, I don't know, the fact that you're not looking at them in the eye, or maybe your body language, it's you're looking down at the ground and you're very kind of hunched over, they might be put off by that. Just if they've been open and friendly with you to that point, uh, take the risk. Tell them about what your issues are, and make it clear that you have no desire to offend them, and you're actually very grateful for them being very friendly and being very open. But prior
Yep.
to this, one thing that, like, it seems very simple, but it actually has helped me a lot in respect to my interactions with people. Whenever somebody comes up to talk to you, even if you suspect that maybe the conversation won't go very well, just smile. Just
Mm,
the fact that, like, just
mm.
with that, people unconsciously realize that this person is willing to entertain whatever you have to say, that they are valuing potentially what you have to say, and they're actually curious about whatever value might. Sorry, there's some sort of beeping going on in the background, John. It's sort of throwing my thought
Boy, I
process
don't
off.
know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm breathing or something.
No, 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 it's not you. It sounds like a microwave beeping or something. Don't you hear that?
Uh, no.
That's really bizarre. Okay. Anyways, the point is just the one of the best things that I found has worked for me, especially with the job that I'm at right now, where I have to interact with people every once in a while. Just smile to them, be receptive to what they're saying, and just generally nod along. And if they're asking you for help, or if they're asking for advice on how to do a particular task, even if you can't help them, just showing that concern, it helps you. It goes a long way. People talk about you positively with your other coworkers, with your boss, and you'll find that there's not as much work that you have to do. But then again, that's just one of the first things that you have to do when it comes to being in an employment situation. And this is a conversation that contains various different aspects that have to be elaborated on over the next week or so. Yeah, John, what is that noise? Seriously, it's just bugging the
I
heck out of
can't
me.
hear. I cannot hear anything except.
Do you guys hear it? Hold on, just let's just be quiet for just 1 second. Dun, dun.
No, don't know what that is.
You don't hear that.
Nope.
Nobody hear. Okay, so it's going to mess me up, of course. Okay. Well, anyways, sorry guys. Well, I'm glad that you guys can't hear it. So that's Daredevil at work. Yeah, I'm glad that it's not contributing to your lack of enjoyment of this stream. But God, it's throwing off my my train of thought. So forgive me if I kind of stumble over my words for the next little bit. I'll try my best to stay focused on the topic at hand. But yeah, anyways, guys, if you have any questions in respect to employment and upward mobility, we sort of just gave a very brief start to the whole subject. We encourage you guys to ask your own questions if you're having particular issues with this, whether it's finding a job or trying to maintain a job or trying to be likable at work. We encourage you to submit them. Uh, and actually, this would be a good transition as we move on to the mailbag. Hold on, I need to bring this up. Darn it. So, if you have a question in respect to the topic that we talk about on the show, the main topic, or something completely unrelated, it doesn't matter. Feel free to submit it to us at any time by using one of these two methods that you see on screen right now. If you want to email in a question so that it can be a part of our mailbag segment of the show, use the email that you see on screen right now, maxderrat@yahoo.ca. Or if you want us to answer a question that you have live on the air, like if you're watching this show live right now and you want us to answer a very specific question, make sure you send it on Twitter using the hashtag differentlywired. That's all one word. It could be related to, like I said, the topic that we just finished discussing or something completely unrelated. But before we get to that segment of the show, which will be towards the end, where we have some email questions that we want to get through. Now, I one thing before we get into the mailbag questions, I have been trying to figure out ways where I can push my speaking ability to greater heights. And what I have decided to do for this particular episode, so just as a fun experiment, normally what I would do is I would read people's email questions beforehand and make notes on them so that way I try my best not to stumble over my words. But just for this one show, I selected 5 questions. I read them, but I didn't take notes. So I'm going to see how well I can answer them off the bat, and hopefully I do them okay because I found their questions to be relatively easy to answer. So, excuse me. Let's start with the very first question, and this question comes to us from Fawad Ali, and Fawad writes, "Hi guys, whenever I have to complete multiple tasks in a day, I find that I have a difficult time choosing which task to start with because I feel overwhelmed with everything I need to complete. My question is, how should I decide on which task I should start on first, and then which one I should do after that, and the next one after that, and so on?" Okay, well, I have this problem all the time, so I'll just suggest my method, and then John can maybe suggest a couple of other methods in case mine doesn't work for you. So I have a number of different things that I have to get done during the day. And normally, what I do when I wake up in the morning, I set a routine for myself so that I make sure that I do this all the time. I open up my journal and I do my best just to list all the things that I have to get done, whether it's within the next hour or within the next day or the next week or the next month. I just list them all. And hey, I can do this multiple times over the course of every day during the week. I can list the same thing over and over again just so that it's constantly in my mind and just so I constantly recognize the relative importance of it, whether it's something that I need to get done now or get done later. So, for example, I'll just I have my journal open in front of me, even though I said I didn't take notes. I actually didn't, but I just happen to have my journal in front of me. So let's see. On January the 30th, I made a list of things to do. I had to do graphics for the show. I had to put out links for the Facebook page and the Discord page, and I sort of organized that and put that towards the top of my list because it's something that I needed to do, and it's something that I had to do pretty soon, right? But then I had other things that I figured I would do over the next couple of weeks. So I don't know if you guys have been watching my YouTube channel recently, but I think it was yesterday or the day before that I put out a video called "The Most Profound Moment in Gaming." And that was a video I intended to do either within a week or in a couple of weeks. So it was lower down the list in terms of things that I had to do. Anyways, so bottom line is just list the things and then rank order them in terms of 2 things. One, how far in advance or how far away is it from needing to be done? And 2, how important it is. Right? So I just rank order those things from top to bottom, and then I do my best to try and get them all done at once, or maybe I just do 1 or 2 things during the day depending on how I'm feeling. If I'm not feeling very mentally healthy, or I don't know, maybe I'm on the verge of a meltdown. It's all relative. You have to be flexible in respect to that. But I find generally that my method works best for me. But hey, if that doesn't work for you, John, do you have anything that you might suggest in respect to this?
Yeah, sure. There is a system that I've sort of developed, which is actually simpler, I think, or shorter, to deal with the issue of overwhelm, which Fawad is talking about. Overwhelm comes when you have a pile of things in a list, and as you're thinking of what you must do, other things come into your mind and make you worry. So these thoughts become like mosquitoes buzzing around in your head, and you often you will deal with that problem by leaving the list and going and playing a video game or something. You got to leave it. You got to avoid it. It's too traumatic. So my little system is something like yours, but it's smaller and it's for the day. So
Sure.
here's what I do. I take little yellow sticky notes, post-it notes, and I write things on those notes that come to me that need to be done. Uh, so whatever the idea is that needs to be done, big, little, whatever, I put it on the right hand side of a piece of paper. On the left hand side of a piece of paper is the one thing that I am going to do now.
Hmm.
So I haven't ranked everything because I'm not sure to right now today which I should do first. But one thing bubbles up for some reason, urgency or attractiveness. So you're going to do that one thing. And that gets me to my next thing that I try to talk about with folks who have this issue. And that is what I call the rule of one. The actual list that's best for you is the list that has one thing on it.
Hmm.
And that one thing in my system is on the left hand side of the page. Now, the reason you have such trouble getting organized sometimes is because things keep coming up, keep coming up, keep coming up. As they come up, you try to bat these flies, these mosquitoes away, but they're troubling you, so you have to do something with them. So you start and you're distracted by them, so you turn toward them and you forget your rule of one. So here's what I do. As the idea comes up, I write it on and I add it to the right hand side of the page. See, in other words, the idea is honored, it is captured, it is respected, but it's not allowed to interfere because you got this one thing you're doing. So you take a second, you write, oh, yeah, yeah, remember to get a dozen eggs, put a dozen eggs on the list, put it on the right hand side of the list, and then go back to planning your life's work on the left hand side of the page,
Mm.
whatever that happens to be. So, what I'm what makes this, I think, neat is that you're not trying to avoid dealing with the distracting issues. You have a simple, tiny system for allowing them to be noted so you can deal with them later.
Yes. Yeah, and that actually might work better in some respects, because that way you're not like some people might have the tendency to become overwhelmed just by listing all those things, and then they still want to avoid it. But if you just select one thing and
Hmm.
then work on that, and then when you had that sense of accomplishment that comes from accomplishing that, then you might take on two tasks rather than just one task. And then when you sufficiently complete those two tasks, then you feel a little bit more confident in yourself to be able to take on more things, take on more uh, integrated, complex schedules so they can get more stuff done.
Sure. And the other thing is, this kind of stuff can get boring, so you're not paying a lot of attention to it. So you may sometimes step back from whatever system you're using and say, is this the best for me right now?
Hmm.
It's okay to switch something up. It's okay to make a big long list. It's okay to rank things sometimes if you're in the mood to do it. It's okay to weigh the pros and the cons of something sometimes. My little system is just for when you're overwhelmed with a pile of odds and ends right now and you want to get started at something. And as you alluded to earlier, when you do one thing and you get that sense of accomplishment, it actually makes you psychologically stronger to deal with the next thing.
Hmm. Absolutely. So those are a couple of methods that you can try out, Fahad. Just try them out for a week or two, see what happens, and then if you want, report back to us. We'd love to see how you're doing, whether things worked or didn't work. Even if they work, we'd love to read out your results on air. And if they don't work, then we'll definitely investigate and try to be a little bit more, like John said, flexible in respect to the people's individual needs. All right, moving on to the next question. This one comes to us from Eat My Slamwich. I don't know. I'm guessing that's Dutch. Anyways, this is a two-part question. First, what is your experience? No, that sorry, that makes more sense if I said Polish instead of Dutch. Anyway, this is a two-part question. First, what is your experience of losing or forgetting things? Secondly, have you tried meditation or any relaxing exercises? By the way, you may not be the most funniest Simpsons character, but you are probably the most awesome. I love my viewers. It's not just that they're so kind, but it's also because they're so smart. Thanks for reading this
Yeah,
slamwich.
of
Anyways,
course.
so first of all, what is your experience of losing or forgetting things? Oh my God, I have so many stories. I'll tell one embarrassing one. I don't know how well this applies because this goes back to when I was like 9 or 10. But this is how bad my short-term memory is for certain things. I remember I was playing my Game Boy back when that was a thing, and I put it down on my chair because I had to go and do something else. And when I looked up after putting the Game Boy on the chair, I immediately forgot where my Game Boy was, and I just started panicking. It's like, oh, where did I put it down? And then I looked around my room for it for like 3 minutes, and then I finally stumbled over my chair again, and I like, you just put that down, you idiot. How did you manage to forget that right after you put it down? You're only 10 years old, and you're already experiencing things that people normally don't experience until they're like 60 or 70. But anyways, that's one example. But even more recently, I this all goes back to an Asperger's person's need for routine. Asperger's person, I don't know, Aspergian. Let's go with that. This all goes back to an Aspergian's need for routine, right? I find that whenever something interrupts my routine, something bad happens. Sort of as a counter effect. You know what was Newton's law? Everything that has an action has an equal and opposite reaction. Is that what it is?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So let me give you an example, right? My work, I don't want to say exactly what my job is, but I'll give a brief description. Basically, I have to go around my store looking for stuff that people buy online. Then I have to bring it upstairs, put it in a box, and then ship it off, right? Well, my store, the tape guns that we have, suck. They suck a cornucopia. You know what? No, I'm not going to swear. They suck so much that I had to borrow the one that we have at home and bring it with me. Now, of course, when you I had to remember to bring it with me at the end of the day. But because I don't normally do that, I had to put extra emphasis on remembering to bring that item, right? Otherwise, I will forget it. You know how whenever you leave the house, you have to remember, okay, got my wallet, got my phone, got my keys, then you're ready to go, right? Sort of the same with me. However, a couple days ago when I did this and I brought my tape gun with me, I did remember to bring the tape gun home, but I forgot to bring my phone home. So I had to drive back over to work and pick it up just to make sure nobody stole it, right? And that sort of circumstance, that sort of situation happens to me all the time. If I do something that is completely out of the ordinary from my routine, something always ends up getting lost. Something unusual happens, and it happens so frequently that sometimes I can't. I'm ashamed to admit this, but sometimes I just cancel plans because I'm afraid that something like that is going to happen again, and it's going to cause me a whole bunch of stress. Like most recently, sorry, I know I'm kind of going long on this, but it's important because I want people to uh, know that they're not alone in this. Some of you might know that I used to do work for Honey Badger Radio. I was supposed to meet up with Brian Martinez from Honey Badger Radio about a month ago at an event in Toronto, and it's because I rarely ever drive downtown, and the anxiety of doing that and making sure that I bring my money, make sure I have my phone and all that, and I don't lose anything. I got out of the car, I went into the building where I was going to meet Brian, but then before I could walk up and talk to him, I realized I'd lost my wallet. Right, so I never actually got the chance to meet Brian because I was afraid that somebody might have stolen my wallet and started using my credit cards or stuff, and it was a particularly stressful night. So yeah, it's a big problem. It's something that you have to be conscious of, and you have to. I don't know if there's really constructive solution to it other than being aware that something like that might happen and always being conscious of the things that you have brought with you and making sure that you don't lose them. Otherwise, I don't know if John has a better solution in respect to losing things or stuff regarding memory.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's
Yes.
going to happen often. I have gone up to my wife and I said, "Have you seen my bloody glasses?" She said, "Put your hand on top of your head."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Happens to everybody all the time. It's good to have routines if you can. Uh, if you can have a home for things when they're not on your person, it's good. On my desk, I have a little wooden bowl that I empty pockets and I throw it in. So my iPhone keys, wallets, all live in that little spot. So it's good to have little routine places to put stuff so that certain things you don't have to be looking for them all the time. But it's going to happen anyway. You got to be gentle with yourself about it.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, you have to give yourself a break because stuff like that happens. And sorry, I did say that there's no really any constructive solution, but there actually kind of is, and John sort of alluded to it. If you set up a routine that you stick to regularly, like if you're constantly forgetting things like on a daily basis or on a semi-daily basis, then setting up a routine sort of fixes things for the most part. Now, there might be a day where your routine is interrupted, and because of that you might lose something on that day, but it's better to lose things one day out of like 6 months than losing or forgetting something every other day, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that might be something you want to try. All right, moving on to the next question, and this comes to us from somebody who's actually emailed us before, Nico Salad Tahan, and he writes, "Hi dear Max, hi dear Nico Salad. I have AS, and I've been told by friends and family I have anger issues and I hurt people I love. I lose sight of who's friend and foe when everything gets crazy, and my reasons of getting angry are always confusing to them. Plus, telling them to stop doing their casual stuff because it makes me angry makes me think I'm nothing but a burden to them. My reasons can be hate to spend time with a group of people who are good, but I dislike uh, reasons like environment triggers. There are many triggers that I don't even understand myself. Thanks." Um, John, did you understand that? Do you want to take that?
I'll start off.
Okay.
It's a messy place to be um, because you don't know what you don't know. So things are happening that you do not understand. Certain things are triggering your senses. So what you have to do is lead from a position, I think, of strength, and that is to say, what can I depend on? What do I know? Okay, if I wear my shirt this way, the collar irritates me. Okay, get rid of that issue. Figure out something you can do about that. And there are people whose sensitivities make, yeah, like labels on the back of clothes irritate them, and stuff like that. So you will often find with this neurobiological stuff that there will be sensitivities to environmental things, noise, big crowds. Some people are not going to survive well, Christmas Eve at Yorkdale Mall. They're just going to collapse. So, okay, you don't go with where those things are that you know of, that you know of. Again, um, I would think with AS, it's probably wise to have a small circle of friends you can trust, even if it's like one or two, rather than trying to work it out with a big group. There's too much. There's too much of a dynamic um, going on with a large group. Too many things are. Somebody says this, and you're trying to analyze the four things that that could mean, and then the answer gives you an exponential number of possibilities. It's too much to deal with. So smaller groups, smaller arrangements, uh, calm environments are probably good for you, Nicosalat.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that I would start with is making sure that you're surrounded by people, friends or family that are aware of the issues that you have, and that a lot of them from time to time aren't within your control, although you are desperately trying to be in control of them so that you can integrate with the wider society around you. Aside from that, obviously sometimes even the best of friends, they'll get confused, but you have to sort of be learn to be sort of a diplomat for yourself, which isn't that hard to do. Just by explaining, hey, look, this all goes back to this issue that I have. I'm sorry if I insulted you. I'm sorry if I made you angry. That was not my intention. I value you as a person. I feel blessed that you are my friend, and I want to do everything to keep you in my life. Right. And once they see that and they realize that this is coming from a genuine place, and it's not that hard to make, like, if they're already your friend, it's not really that hard to convince them. But if you just learn to do that, a lot of this stuff can be overcome. Now, having said that, that obviously not everything in regards to situations like these can be entirely put on the other party. You have to do stuff yourself. Like in respect to what the previous Neko, no, sorry, not Neko, Slamwich said, one thing that you can do is work on his meditation. I haven't done it a lot myself, but I found that there are benefits to doing meditation exercises. One thing in particular is being aware of your emotions before they come out and being able to put a damper on them. uh, One thing that I would recommend to you, that's been recommended to me by my friend Marcus, look up what is it, guided meditation by Sam Harris. He
Hmm.
does a lot of great stuff in respect to that. And it's very, very calming. It really helps bring your anger impulses under control, which I know sounds difficult and impossible. But as somebody who is prone to meltdowns from time to time, I've found that my meditative exercises and making, like, my desire to keep the peace in any situation has given me a capacity to mute these outbursts 99% of the time when I'm in a public situation. Um, Now, like, I don't know, maybe your level of AS is at a point where you can only mute it 50% of the time compared to my 99%. It's still something that you should shoot for. And it's anyways, even if it's only like 2%, the effort that you're putting forward to it, that's something that you can display to your friends and family, and they'll be appreciative of it, and they'll see it as something that is respectable, and it'll make them want to be around you even more. All right, we're going to take one more question because we're sort of running out of time. We have one here from Nicholas, but we're going to have to skip over that. So because unfortunately it's a little bit too long, but we will get it to it next show. Uh, but before we get to the final question, I just want to remind you guys that. Sorry, no, that's the wrong graphic. If you want to get your questions responded to live, make sure you submit them on Twitter using the hashtag differentlywired. Or if you want to guarantee that your question is read out, make sure you send in a super chat, which I've seen a couple of people have already done. We're going to get to yours before the end of the show. Don't worry. Finally, let's get on to the last question. The last question comes to us from Anonymous. And Anonymous writes, Hi. Hi. I've been informally diagnosed with AS, but due to I'm assuming that's the National Health Service, that's the UK, right?
Hmm.
Not bothering to take mental health seriously, they lost my referral for a formal one in the system. While a lot of the symptoms you talk about only affect me to a mild degree, the issue I have is being severely impaired in social ability, not really being aware of how to make and maintain friendships or to know what people are thinking unless they tell me. I don't have any friends, although this doesn't bother me as I feel extremely uncomfortable around most people and like to be alone. The problem is, when I find someone I am comfortable around, it's always an attractive girl, and I get fixated on them and see them as my entire world and one true love of my life. Seeing them this way for sometimes years without really talking to them more than a short, forced conversation a week because I don't know how to get close to people. When I end up getting rejected by these girls, it triggers a severe panic meltdown, like you described, and this has caused me a lot of troubles. It makes me come off as intensely creepy, with one girl refusing to stay in the same room as me after a certain point. I still think about her for sometimes hours a day, even though I'll never see her again and we now live in different cities. Do you or your co host, his name is John, have any. Sorry, I'm just
Hmm.
kidding. Have any suggestions about how I can interact more with girls I like without becoming deeply obsessed with them to a point where they might actually want to hang out with me and genuinely be my friend? Because at the moment, this just causes issues and heartache. Sorry for the long email. I appreciate your videos as they help me understand my personality a lot more. Well, thank you so much for that comment, and thanks so much for sending in the email, Anonymous. First of all, oh man, it's just like you're describing my high school years to me in a nutshell. Listen, what has worked best for me is realizing that my entire in building a positive male identity for myself that doesn't center entirely around getting the approval of women. which for a large part of my youth, it sort of was conditioned into me that, but not just necessarily by the stereotypical macho, hyper masculine crowd, but also by like from people that you might not expect, people like that might proclaim themselves to be feminists. Uh, what they sort of conditioned me to believe is that by getting the approval of a woman in my behavior or my exploits, that sort of is an indicator of how well my life is going. That's not true, especially for people that have AS, or are differently wired. What I recommend that you do is sort of, oh god, that noise is coming in again. What I would recommend you do is try to find different ways, like different activities, different hobbies that you can dedicate a lot of your time to, um, outside of work, stuff that you actually enjoy doing, and become an expert at it. And make that become an integral part of your identity, whether it's music or drawing or hell, even video games. Just as long as it's not taken away from you being doing other productive stuff like or important stuff like eating, sleeping, going to work. Just as long as it makes you happy and you derive a sense of meaning from it, and it makes people around you want to be around you and are interested in your interests and the way you go about pursuing your hobbies. That's one thing that has really really worked for me. Like that's why I do this YouTube channel, for example. That's why I learned how to play guitar and the piano. That's why I've been trying to learn French for a large part of my life. It's just because it's by trying to improve upon other aspects of your identity where you tangibly can, where you have an interest and where you really feel like, hey, I can actually do something with this, then people naturally become attracted to you, and you don't place all your worth on how other people look at you and approve of you, right? And once you start doing that, the desire to uphold women or specific women as being your one true love, that goes away naturally, right? At least that's what I found in my experience. Now, John, I know like this sort of thing, this has probably happened to you like a long, long time ago, but do you have any advice in respect to this issue?
Yeah, it's easy to see why somebody who felt this way about women would kind of put them on a pedestal, and really get involved and everything matters. Um, so I can see why that would happen, and we can't make it entirely go away by good works, but we can certainly become emotionally and psychologically stronger by doing the kinds of things you're talking about. Improving your skill, improving your language abilities, improving your talents, and so on. But you want to meet people, so uh, quite often, I find my clients have a better time meeting people through online means, whether it's games or dating sites or something, than they do in a general public environment. So they sort of, that is one way. I have actually helped some people with doing that. Um,
Sorry, John,
you
just
know,
to interrupt you very briefly. People are asking how I met my ex girlfriend. Well, it's just as you said, I met her online, and even though it might sound taboo, like oh, you can't really get to know somebody if you meet them online first, that's absolutely not true. I was with my last girlfriend for 2.5 years, and even though we're separated right now, I still think she's absolutely wonderful. So sorry to interrupt, but please continue.
no, it's a good interrupt because it's absolutely the case, and it's not. You're not the only case, Max, where clients found it much better to introduce themselves to one another online because the communication overload is narrowed. The channel is narrowed. You control the gain, you control the racket, you control the overwhelming sensory stuff when you're online. And that's a really good way to start. However, if you still want to go out and meet people, then a clever trick is to find a person who is female, your sister, your cousin, who you don't have any particular designs on romantically at all. It's your sister. Get out of it. It's not a problem.
And if
But
it's
they
your
go with
sister,
you.
please don't tell us. But please
Yeah, yeah,
continue.
keep it to yourself. But you go out with this person who is your pal, your female pal, and they help you navigate that slope because they're on your side. They know what you tell. They're your confidant. They can save you a lot of misery. But the deal is that they're doing it as a favor. They're a friend. They're a classmate. They're a cousin or whatever they are.
Yeah, so if you find yourself like that might be a good starting point. If you're currently like if you find yourself easily getting into social relationships at first with women, and you tend to have a pretty strong friendly bond with that particular woman before the romantic feelings take over. Maybe you could sort of explain to them what you've been going through and see if they might be able to help you or might refer somebody that they're friends with to help you out. I found that when I've predominantly have female friends, and I've done that a couple of times, and it's helped somewhat. So that might be something you want to try out, and let us know if you do try that out. Like I said to, I think it was Fawad or Slamwich, I can't remember. Just report back to us. Make sure to email us back at maxderrat@yahoo.ca. Okay, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to hold on. Whoops, no, that's a black screen. Let me bring up the YouTube chat. No, I'm just wow. Okay, so you guys can see yourself talking online. We got a couple super chats, and then I think we got we'll read one Twitter question, and then we're going to call it a day. Thanks so much for sticking around with us, guys, through all the technical difficulties. We really appreciate your support. First of all, first super chat comes to us from Jeremy Comfort. He sends us in $2. Thanks very much for that, Jeremy. And he asks, why is autism often confused with psychopathy? Well, I mean, people like to I would say that it's probably because people like to ostracize things that they don't understand, right?
I think it's just that simple.
Yeah.
The
Like,
world of the world of mental health is a nuanced kind of world, and the distinction between one diagnosis and another, psychiatrists argue over all the time.
mhm.
The general public, generally, people like to have things. Oh, this is a good person. This is a bad person. They like to see things straight. Oh, you're a nice person. I can trust you. You're not nice. So I think it's as simple as that. It's just you have to speak your truth quietly and clearly, and and make your way basically from strength to strength and good person to good person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unfortunately, Jeremy, one thing about having AS that doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon is that there's going to be a lot of people that will simply ostracize you just because you possess something that they can't come to terms with right away. But just
Hmm.
because that's the case, that doesn't mean you have to take their reactions to heart or make it seem like there's something wrong with you that and that you'll be forever broken. Like one thing that you can do if you want, just I'll do this specifically for you. If you want to send me an email to join the Discord chat, you can. So that way you can interact with people that have gone through similar situations that you have, and they can support you, make you realize, hey, there's nothing broken about you. You just happen to be differently wired, and you deserve to live a happy life and not have stuff like that intrude on that.
One
Uh,
thing,
yeah.
Max, that bubbles up for me in this, and that is those of you that are listening in have to cultivate a gracious kind of forgiveness of people's misunderstanding. So you, instead of being offended quickly, you can smile first. Now, maybe you can be offended later, but if you greet it with a little bit of a knowledge that they don't know what they're really thinking or doing, or if the effect they're having, it might make it easier for the communications to go in a gentle way.
Yeah. And one thing I'd recommend, and this sort of goes for anybody, regardless of your mental health status, you might get offended by somebody who's acting like an ass towards you. Um, Given the way people tend to be named and shamed on social media nowadays, it's best to just try and not say anything and just walk away, because somebody
Mm,
might
mm.
record some sort of outburst or some verbal backlash that you might have against somebody that's acting terribly to you. They post that online, and that person ends up looking like the hero, and you end up looking like the villain. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, Cataries, I don't know how to pronounce that. Cataries, it's spelled Catoriesih, all one word. I don't know how to pronounce that, dog. Sorry. but he or she asks, "How does one handle breakups with Asperger's?" Um, well, okay, let me see. I'll go back to when I broke up with my girlfriend, which was last August. What did I do? I I immediately told my family, and because they love and support me, and they knew that the fact that we broke up, it wasn't my fault. They went out of their way, including my sister, who I rarely ever talked to. She was especially nice during this whole situation. They made me feel valued. Like, um, it wasn't my fault. It was just the natural way things were going to go. Um, Aside from that, I would say if it affects you particularly strongly, make sure you have somebody keep an eye on you, so that they could see how you're functioning with certain things, whether it's basic everyday tasks or stuff that's happening at your job or stuff like that. And if it gets particularly bad, just seek out professional help. Talk to a psychologist if you want, and God forbid, maybe talk to a psychiatrist if it's affecting you that badly. Um, Aside from that, I don't know how to give advice in respect to how somebody with AS can handle breakups compared to how somebody who doesn't, because it seems to be like pretty congruent.
I think it is congruent. And generally speaking, when you're breaking up, you do it in as gracious a way as you can. In other words, you don't send people a text message or skywriting. You try to tell them in whatever way you normally communicate. Normally, it's face to face.
Hmm.
It may be on a phone call if that's the way you normally communicate, or it may be online if that's the way you typically communicate. But whatever the way you normally communicate, that's where it has to happen, and you do it as graciously as you can, but you don't drag it out.
Right.
You don't, you don't drag it out. You don't hem and haw. It's either it's you got to rip that bandage off fast.
Mhm. All right. Well, thanks for that, John. Very quickly before we complete this, unfortunately, we've hit the top of the hour and John has to go. But I just want to say a couple of quick things. One, I see a couple of people are trying to ask me questions by tagging me in the chat. Unfortunately, guys, because there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes, I don't have as much time to pay attention to the chat. Like I said, the best way you can submit a question so that I can read it is if you send in a super chat, or if you don't have any money, you can send the question in to me using the Twitter hashtag differently wired. I will answer this very quickly though. FBot said, "Will you please start a Discord for your AS community?" I do have a Discord for my AS community. If you see the link in the description box, hopefully, I don't know. There are a lot of regular viewers for this show that we have so far, so maybe not everybody's clicked on it yet, but there's a link in the description box where it's available for the first 5 people that click on it. So if you click on that right now, you can join it. And if you're not able to get in, check back next week because we'll have a new link and then you guys will be able to join in there. Sorry for doing this, for making it exclusive. It's just we're trying to get incentives for people to listen to the show so that we can keep it going, so that we can get some support, moral support first off, but then hopefully financial support as we move on. Anyways, that'll do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to remind you, if you want to send in a question, I'll put that up one last time before we conclude the show today. Where is it? Where is it? It is right here. If you have a question that you want us to talk about during the mailbag segment of the show, make sure you email to us using this email that you see on screen right now, maxderrat@yahoo.ca, or like I just said, live question, hashtag differently wired on Twitter. Finally, if you want to support the show, there are 2 ways you can do it. Obviously, one is financial. If you want to contribute financially, you can send in a super chat, like I said, or there's a PayPal link in the description box below. Everything that you sent will be put towards the show. Or if you can't support us financially, that's fine. I totally understand that the whole purpose of the show is to sort of give a non-financial option for people that don't really have a lot of money at the moment. But the best thing that you can do to help support us, more than money in some respects, is by taking one of these podcast episodes or one of the Asperger's related videos on my channel and sharing it around. If you have a Twitter account, just put it on Twitter and share it. Or if you have a family member or a friend that's going through some stuff right now, share this particular episode with them. We'd love to be able to talk to them and try and help them out. Believe me, guys, when you guys have done that in the past, it has helped me gain a lot of subscribers and a lot of viewership for the show. If you can continue to do that, it would really help us out a lot. And I know you guys have been doing a great job, and I please continue to do so. I really count on you guys. Anyways, I want to thank John, as always,
You're welcome.
for doing the show. And thank you for again for being so patient during the technical difficulties. I know I almost lost my crap. And thanks to you guys for being so patient with us and sticking with us through all that. We'll figure it out at some point where we can get through a show without there being technical difficulties. I promise. I promise. Anyways, until next time, guys, have a lovely, lovely day.